Habari sa asubuhi. So advocacy, okay, it's a term that we use in the US, and it basically means doing what you do, which is tell your story. So telling your story to the people who need to hear the story about the good things that you're doing and also about your needs. We're gonna think about how to tell your story. I've heard many people talk about the good things we're doing. Somebody who hasn't shared yet, who would like to just say one thing that their library is doing, one good thing. Is there somebody who would like to tell their story really quick? One good thing? I wanted to give the opportunity. Go ahead, Purity.
You know that you're talking about public libraries. I wish to give an example of the public library and what we do. I work in Nakuru Library through the Kenya National Library Service. And one fantastic program that we learn at the library that has really made a great impact in the community is what we call mathematics clinic. Every Saturday we have a program whereby children come to the library and they are taken through revision in terms of mathematics. We target the class 8 students and high school students. For the class 8, those that have gone through our program, we started it in 2016. They have improved academically, and actually a number of them went to national schools. There's one special girl I talk about. She came when she was scoring, maybe the highest mark she ever got in mathematics was 0.8 out of 100. And when she got to the program, she actually ended up scoring 88% in KCP, and she went to Naivasha Girls. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That's a great example of telling your story. You talk about something you're doing, and you talked about a specific person whose life was impacted, and you had some solid data to back it up. That's super, thank you. Who have you talked to? We're talking to each other, and that's valuable, but who in your community, who makes decisions about your library, and who have you talked to is something that I want us to think about today. And maybe you'll think about somebody new that you need to talk to today. That would be excellent. So why do we need to tell our stories? This is kind of like the question I asked on the first day in my first session about readers. Why is it important that we do what we do? Why is it important that we have a nation of adult readers? Why is it important to tell our story? Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Sharing the knowledge when we talk to each other. That is to tell a story, that everyone say the story about themselves, so we adapt from there as a part of learning.
Yes, yeah. Learning from each other's stories, thank you. And I want to say that when I did the program yesterday and I had you envision your library and if it needed any improvements, I heard last night that you couldn't think of anything. And I think that's so wonderful. The pictures of your library, inshallah, are beautiful. Yeah, so it's very exciting to me to hear from you all. So we need to tell our story because people don't know. And if we don't say anything, they're not going to be able to guess what's happening in the library. So communicating with our principals, community leaders, the politicians, school leaders. I heard somebody say, insert yourself into every discussion, go and approach the other teachers and tell them what you do. People need to think of us as a resource. So policymakers, key is presenting something to the parliament I can't remember the exact wording, but that school libraries are important, and was it that they needed a librarian and a library in each school. I think that might be it. So policymakers are really important because they make decisions for us, and then we have to live with those policies. So they need to know what exactly we do and how important it is. Other nonprofits, communicating with the other agencies in your community, so you're not doing the same thing. If you work together, it's much more powerful. Of course, parents and students. Those are our two most important, what would we call them, stakeholders, yes. And anyone else who's interested in well-being in your community, actually everyone. So here's some of the things you can say to your stakeholders. Talk about the strengths of the library, why school libraries are important in general. What are the exciting things that are happening at your library? There are many, many exciting, innovative things that we do, and we're so busy doing them that we forget to talk about them. I do that all the time. What is that exciting thing? And it might not be a new program. It might be that one student who went from an 8 to an 88 on her exam because she interacted with something in the library. You could talk about how the students use the library, how important it is to have a library because it helps them in their other classes. And then think about the data. That hard number, 80 or 8 to 88 is a hard number. When you hear that number, don't you just say, wow, that's amazing? Yeah. So keeping track of those numbers is also really important. And one of the things that I love to do in my library is show the increases. So it's kind of easy for me to show an increase in people who come into my library because we had COVID and nobody was coming in. And now people are coming back and wanting to be a part of the public life. But before, it took a little time. So I can show a graph of the number of people that have come into the library, and it's slowly increasing. That's cool. That's a cool thing. But next year, when I show the increase after all the hard work we did, and I have a graph that shows 2023 and then 2024, and we're kind of finished with people being afraid to go out in public because of COVID. So showing 2023 to 2024 increases is going to be really, really exciting for us. What is unique about your library? What's important about your library? I heard Irene talk about a chief your chief goes into the library and reads to the kids, and does he find the kids who have not been attending school and he brings them. He brings the kids who haven't been going to school, and he brings them to the library and he reads to them. That's beautiful. To me, that's a unique thing and a story worth telling. And we can talk about our needs too, to the right people. If you can identify the person that can make a difference, they'll want to hear your story, and they may be much more interested in a specific need that they can meet. So really tailoring your story to the listener. And then the needs of the school community and the wider community. How are you going to help your community? If you can answer some problems that someone has and they see, that's a great thing. Here's 3 things I thought of off the top of my head, how we tell our story. Of course, talking. Word of mouth, one-to-one. Making that connection with somebody. Social media is very important. people have an expectation in the US, if you have any kind of organization, a nonprofit, a school, a business, I'm going to be able to find you online. So I expect if I hear about an organization like Key, I'm going to look online. I'm going to look at their social media because I don't just want to know what's on their website, which is static. It just pretty much stays the same. I want to know what you're doing day to day. So if I see pictures of your programs or things, inspirational stories, then I get a better sense of your organization. Printed material is important too. In my library, I have brochures that I hand out that tell our story. I'm going to go on. But one thing maybe we could do is have a mural. This woman is painting, libraries are important, on the wall of her library. I photoshopped it. That's not really what she's doing, but I made it for this presentation. So when you're talking to stakeholders, whether that's a parent or a community member or your principal, a politician, be prepared. Think about what you're going to say ahead of time. Christy mentioned an elevator speech. It's a 60-second planned speech that you could give somebody if you were in an elevator going from the ground floor up to the rooftop. So it's from the business world, I think, but it's very helpful in our field. Just something really quick that you could say. Our library is really important because it helps encourage a culture of reading, and adults need to be able to love reading and continue to read their whole lives because we want an educated, informed population that can critically think about issues. That might be a quick example. Individualize, like I said, think about who you're talking to and how you can pinpoint something that will touch their heart. Relatable, so give an example, make it something that the person, it's much like being, tailoring it to the individual. Make it personal, make it relatable, give an example, tell a good story, show your enthusiasm, be passionate. I don't think that's a problem for anybody here. And heartfelt. So if you can bring in some emotion, something, pride. Pride is you want your community to feel proud of the library that you have. This is my example of a story. These are teenagers in our community. If you lived in our community, you would see these kids walking around the street, and they often cause trouble. They vandalize, maybe. I haven't seen it, but they have been accused of doing damage to our village park. They talk disrespectfully to adults. They don't do well in school. If you knew their backgrounds, some of them are not living with their parents. Their parents might have left or are in prison. They struggle with learning. They're just kids in our community who, they're troublemakers. They're labeled as troublemakers. These kids have come to our library. They want to do library programs. They asked for a tea party. Tea is not something we really do in the US. This is really special. And these children probably never had tea or tea party. So they got dressed up, they planned it, they organized everything, and they invited their friends. And here's a group of kids that were labeled in my community as troublemakers who are having a tea party that they planned. That's just a quick story about what we do at the library to change lives. Social media, there's lots of information out there. I'm a big fan of the website Canva, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I do a variety of posts on my library Facebook and Instagram page. We advertise our services. We have puzzles people can check out. We do kind of funny reminders using humor. This middle one is talking about spring cleaning and returning your library books. So we consider that if you want to clean your house, one of the things you can check off on your list is returning your library book, visiting the library, checking out new books, and chatting with the librarian. And then I think one of the most important things for telling my story is always reminding people of what we have done in the past. So at the end of 2022, I made many posts like this last one. What a year, 2022. And I have pictures of the different things that we did to remind people that the library does a whole bunch of things. Printed material. So this is done from Canva, and I'm going to give you a document that can kind of help you think through this. This is just data. This is not a lot of stories. I'm kind of letting the numbers tell the story. If I were to give this to somebody, I would probably want to elaborate a little bit and maybe talk about the increase in the number of checkouts that we had over the year. But this is a good basic, the library by the numbers. This one, the big one is from a school library, and that's available on the Canva website for free. And I'm going to give you a link to this template. All you need to do is take out those numbers and put your own numbers in. Maybe you don't have Chromebooks patched up, but you have a different thing that you do. So I'm going to give you that. I modified it for my library. This is side one of a brochure I did. So if you would imagine this page is actually a trifold. Fold it like that and like that. I like these brochures, but if I just show you this, it's a little hard to visualize what it is. We are going to ask for a $30,000 increase this year because our costs have gone up. That's a lot of money. In Kenyan shillings, 30,000. What would that be?
3 million.
3 million. Wow. That's a lot of money. It's divided. All of the taxpayers in my community, all the people who own property will contribute to it. It will equal about 1,000 shillings per person per year. So it's not a huge amount, but when you look at 3 million, that seems like a lot. So I need to prove that we're worth it. So one of the ways is through this brochure that I'm giving out. So I have our contact information. I have a nice picture of a child that's attended our program, and she's smiling. I have a pie chart that shows what we spend our money on, and then I have those numbers, and I have a little bit of an explanation. If I had more room, I would tell some heartwarming story, but this is about all I have room for.